Welcome to the True North podcast, where we help men walk with God, engage in the larger story, and live free. Today, we're leaning into something core to our mission and vital to the heart of every man. That's the role of father. We've got Father's Day coming up, and whether you had a great dad, a distant one, or no father at all, you know the truth. Fathers shape lives. They anchor your identity, and they set the tone for the family. When a man steps into his role as a father, with humility, strength, and love, he reflects something powerful, the very heart of God. He becomes a steady presence in a world full of uncertainty. He becomes a warrior, a shepherd, and a guide. In this episode, we're talking about the irreplaceable role and influence of fathers. Because when a father gets his heart back and learns to lead with purpose and grace, families heal, children thrive, and legacies change. So whether you're a dad, a son, or someone still healing from their own father wound, this one is for you. Let's get into it. All right, guys, we are here for our first ever Father's Day podcast on the True North podcast. And I wanted to invite all of you guys because, number one, you're pretty incredible dads. Number two, we're all in different stages of parenting. And so with me, I've got Jeremy Stoner, president of our board, pretty incredible guy. Matt Ford, camp director for base camps and been around True North for quite a while now. Ryan Moore, of course, and Heath Jackson, who has been on the podcast before. So if you want to hear Heath's story, go back into the archives and check that out. But let's start with our stages of parenting and just go through your family, list out the ages of your kids. Jeremy, I'll start with you since you've got the longest list.
I have a long list. I'm in every stage right now. So my wife and I have been married for 24 years. Our oldest is 21. Married with a brand new baby. So we are recent grandparents. We have an 18-year-old that just graduated high school. And then we have a 14-year-old and 12-year-old daughters at home. And then also 9-year-old and 7-year-old boys. Yeah. So we are at about every stage of parenting. Yeah. So mental whiplash sometimes. Yeah. But we joke sometimes about I'll come home from work and there's going to be tears. It's just a matter of, is it going to be a teenage daughter or is it going to be a little boy crawling across the table and falling off? So It's just a matter of what might you expect on any given night? So.
Yeah. This whole podcast could be just him.
Yeah. He's got all the stages covered.
I'm going to tell you what not to do at each stage.
Yeah. Matt, how about you?
Well, Paula and I have been married 30 years in July.
Oh, wow.
Which is amazing. Praise God. And we have a 28-year-old daughter, a 24-year-old daughter, and a 20-year-old son. The 28-year-old daughter is married. Great son-in-law. We have a 3.5-year-old grandbaby.
That's awesome.
Her name's Sutton, and she's amazing. Mm-hmm. And we're hoping for more. We're crossing our fingers. Yeah. But that's our life right now.
Awesome. Yeah. So I've shared it on the podcast before, but I've got a 25-year-old, kind of an adult adoption daughter. And then I've got almost 18-year-old that just graduated from high school daughter. And then we've got an 8-year-old son that's going into 3rd grade and a 5-year-old that's going into kindergarten girl.
Yeah. So I have a 17-year-old girl and a 15-year-old boy. And Meg and I have been married 22 years this past March. So praise God. Mm-hmm. And the house is, we're in an interesting phase. So, because it's just busy with Molly's driving and doing her thing, and Gabe's usually tagging along. So, the house is just different than it's been in years with them being underfoot all the time. They're kind of creating their own lives. So,
yeah. I got to stop you because I didn't say anything about my marriage. It'll be 10 years in November. Yeah. And so big year for us as well. So,
yeah.
I am out of my league here. Married 12 years this past May. Have a 5-year-old. She's going to be 6 in August. 2.5-year-old, and surprise, Hannah is pregnant.
What?
Breaking
Are you
news.
using this platform?
I am, yeah.
You're the announcer right here. Yeah.
Does your
That's
family know
great.
about this?
Yeah.
Okay, good.
Okay.
It's very
Good.
recent. It is kicking her butt right now.
Yeah.
So, but yeah.
Congratulations,
Yeah,
man.
good for you,
Thank
buddy.
Thank
That's
you.
awesome.
That's great.
Well, that's the biggest news ever broken on the Trailer podcast. So, well, cool. Well, there's a lot of reasons that Father's Day is a beautiful time and a beautiful thing to celebrate. Obviously, at True North, we believe deeply in the impact of fathers and what it represents and the ripple effect that it has in society. That's what we're about, is like healing the hearts of men. And a majority of that is either from the fathering that they had growing up or their lives as fathers and husbands right now. And so we wanted to take this time on the podcast to dive into the specific element of being a father and even some elements of having been fathered. And so really excited to just dig into this with you guys and just have an organic conversation around this subject. I think there's going to be some powerful stuff come out. So first question for the table: How is being a father impacted your understanding of who you are as a man?
You know, it's made me, it has made me more patient and tender, being a young man, and the drive and everything's a competition and everything's about you and your, you know, those 20s and you're trying to win at life. And kids they humble you. And learning what it's done to me is made me sit back and look at my kids differently, and with that fatherly love, like the prodigal son's father, you know, sat back and just you would do anything for them and their happiness. And so there's this patience and this humility that comes with it. That's what it's done for me.
Yeah.
I think that's really good because in the same vein, growing up, I always had plans, right? But the plans typically revolved around like winning at life. It looked like, what did it look like to execute at work? Or what does it look like to win financially or anything of that nature? But calling is a big part of what fathering has been, or just father has meant to me. Because in our story, a little bit deeper into our story, we had 4 girls and we thought we were completely done. I grew up wanting 3 kids. I thought that was just the right number to have. I don't know why, but we had 4 girls and more kids were not on the table. But God actually gave us dreams about having 2 boys. And there's a long story and kind of how that played out, but it changed everything. And my calling as father was so much of a bigger deal than the calling anywhere else in my life. It just became consuming the place of father, to have a large family, that it just wasn't part of my plan. So calling as father has always been, it's just bigger than me, bigger than my plan. I always say, as long as I was willing to listen and willing to participate with God, that his plan was always better than my plan. But yeah, those 2 little boys, now that they're 9 and 7, it's just a completely different world. But not my plan.
Yeah.
I like that. Bigger than me. So, I think all of us can relate to this place where we were stuck in maybe our muck and unable to see anybody else outside of ourselves. Yeah. And so as the Lord has shifted me from that season, first with my wife and being able to sacrificially love her better, and then in fatherhood, it's really humbling. My kids do not care about my drive. My kids do not care about my ambition and the things that I want to do for the kingdom or work or whatever. They just want me. They just want me present. And that's really, it's difficult sometimes. Like the summit message is so challenging when you apply that to just being present with your family beyond anything else. So I like that. Bigger than us. And what we want is these little people that just want us present.
I remember the way I phrased it back when my kids were about your kids' age was, getting married like we're called to die to ourselves. Getting married, you're choosing to die for yourself. Whenever you have the kids, it's no longer a choice. You are dying to yourself because they are going to demand it. And so, man, that for me, understanding what sacrifice meant and how much of my life was self-centered, and how much of that God has had to strip away and continues working on stripping away.
Yeah, I would say the same thing. I think that, even though I grew up in the church and was a believer, I feel like my real relationship with God started when my kids were very young. And so I look at pre-kids and even early on, I was pretty selfish and driven to succeed financially and all those things. But it's been kind of a growing up, if you will, of like not only in my spiritual walk, but also with the kids. And God has fathered me so much through my kids as well. And so it's kind of goes hand in hand as far as just learning to be less selfish constantly. And then also to step up and lead. Like nobody else is going to do it. You can't passively, just let things happen. And that's been a big part of my journey as a father. It's like, and the fight to be present, just because of my own wounding and past, and the struggle to want to check out, even the last few years have looked way different than a decade ago. Right. And so definitely, and I'm sure we'll get into it, but regrets as far as that goes. Yeah. But it's just a growing up and dying to self,
Yeah, God will use that parenting to bring up these old unhealed places. Like for me, I was a hothead in sports. Like I played goalie for my soccer team and went on to play college. And man, if I got scored on, I'd throw temper tantrums and all this stuff. Well, you move on and into adult life and you start into the workforce. And honestly, I just wasn't faced with anything that would make me blow my top. And so this went on for 10 years where I think I'm healed. But the truth is it was just laying dormant. And then whenever your kids are little and you don't have this control anymore and they're doing these things and screaming at you and realizing like I'm having poor reactions to it, like, oh, like that's still in there. And so the excavation of all that is a challenging part of parenting as well. Yep. So,
hearing that story though reminds me. I just get this image in my head when Hannah, our oldest, was born. We came home. This is 2004, so we're going back a little ways, back when OSU basketball was actually really good, and I was a huge OSU fan. But up until that point, I was the guy always yelling at the TV. I was the one like cheering from. They could be 6 hours away, and I was yelling as if they're going to hear me and be more motivated by my spirit in the room. But she's laying on me at 3 days old, while OSU's in the Final Four, and I'm doing everything I can to not just blow up with excitement and disappointment during that game with a brand new baby just laying on me in the chair. And so that was one of those moments where it's like not a breaking moment, but like, oh, I can't get away with this anymore. Yeah. Like I need to. It's like a little bit of a check for me in my spirit. Like, oh, there's something else going on that's bigger than me, right? Back to that idea.
Yeah. So before we dig into kind of our parenting, I think the next question I'd like to ask, if you're comfortable sharing it, how has y'all's relationship with your father, your earthly father, impacted the way that you father now?
So see if I can do this without shedding a tear. He passed.
Tears get all the views.
He passed away 3 years ago this week. Coming up, I think, a couple days. And he's a great dad. I had a great father. And we had a lot of good conversations for the last few years of his life, talking about things. He even said things to me that I wish I could have done this differently. Just kind of like maybe we're talking about here, how could we do things differently? But we had those conversations. But Great dad, just different generation and raised a little differently. And I had the whole you do it because I told you so type scenario. And I love you was not a word I heard. I knew he loved me. So, but I just didn't hear it much. So I'm extremely intentional, have been for forever, that my kids are going to hear me say, I love you. And so that's my focus a lot is even if, because I love them. And even when they mess up, I love them. So I just want them to hear it. And then there's the showing it. But my dad was good at showing it. He just never said it. But I verbally, I think words of affirmation, I think my oldest is really big about that. She really wants to hear those words and other good words. So that's where I think that's what I've learned. One takeaway anyway.
Side note, why does because I told you so not work anymore? What's with this new generation? My kids are like, yeah, whatever, you know? Really crazy. How about you, Jeremy?
Yeah, I maybe have a similar dad in that, well, a little backstory. My dad's dad passed away when my dad was 6. And that was not something I really knew. I went to my first base camp, and the first time I heard God was at my first base camp, 2012. And God revealed to me my dad's wounds from childhood and why my dad fathered me the way that he did. My dad's older brother was his father figure, and he was in high school at the time that my dad was 6 when my grandpa, when he passed away. And so that was the model of fathering that my dad had, which was more to be a buddy and a friend than a disciplinarian. And I always struggled with that because I looked at other dads, my friends' dads, as disciplinarians, as leaders. And my dad was a little bit more passive, but he wanted to just have fun. When I was younger, I didn't really spend a lot of time with my dad. When I could enjoy the things that he enjoyed, that's when I got a lot of time with my dad. Hunting and fishing, going out, doing those types of things. I got a lot of my dad's time. But we still never clicked real well until that time when God revealed to me his wounds from childhood. And our relationship changed immediately. He did nothing different, but like our relationship changed immediately. I had so much empathy for him as a dad, knowing the background, knowing his wounds. So I think when I reflect on that, like, what does that mean for me as a dad? Like, my dad was loved for the kind of the comedy and the brevity that he brought into conversations. Always wanting to joke, always wanting to be together. That was a big deal for my dad as well. Similarly, though, he didn't say he loved us. He showed it. He was there. I mean, he was present. We were always having fun together. But that was something that I didn't hear a lot growing up. My dad passed away right before my oldest son was born 9 years ago. And it was completely out of the blue. So, I mean, there's still a lot of pain in that. There's been a lot of healing in it too. But I do a lot of reflecting on, like, how did dad father versus how I do. And there's some differences for sure. But I love to reflect on that a little bit because I always saw him as a great friend to many. And it was beyond our family, but for a lot of people. Yeah. So thinking about how is it that we love and serve other people, I think is probably the biggest takeaway from my dad.
That's good.
So I've been so harsh with my dad, like inside, for most of my life. And there are some reasons for that, right? But through all the healing that the Lord is taking me through, in both wounding and the traumatic stuff of my childhood, that had nothing to do with my dad, he's now kind of taking me through a season where he's like, okay, now that we've dealt with that, I'm going to start bringing you the memories, the good memories that you just refuse to see or believe about my father. So I'm in a weird season where he's actually starting to take me through times that my dad totally got it right and was pursuing me as a father. And It's really surreal because my whole life I've only ever seen the negative side of him. And even some of that was like a skewed reality based on my wounding. So I went into fatherhood like, if I just don't do that, I'm going to win. And that's not true. And even through my children, I'm getting so much compassion. One of you guys said that towards my dad. When I totally blow it, I'm like, man, he was just doing the best he could. I'm in a pretty cool season right now that the Lord is taking me through to see my dad in a completely different way than I ever have.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That sounds really rare. Like, but how good is God to gift you that and gift your father that?
Yeah, we haven't really had these conversations yet, but the Lord has been raising things up that were win moments for my dad, and they're not. I mean, he did a lot of things really well.
Makes me think of like, that's so hopeful for the fathers listening right now that just feel like you've screwed it up. Like, God will pursue your kid for you and reveal these things for you. Ryan, how about you?
Yeah, I was trying to think about what even to say because my dad came into the picture when I was 3. And so I was always told that he chose me. My mom always said he fell in love with me first, and so I knew pretty early on growing up because family friend figured out that they were adopted and didn't, it was kind of a big blow up because she was 12 and, went through the whole, you're not my real dad and stuff like that. So my parents told me pretty early on. And he was a good dad. He got a lot of things right. He was a wild man. He was not saved whenever my mom and he got together. And so I remember some pretty chaotic times, but he got a lot right. And part of that, I believe, is because I was a soccer player. He was a semi-pro soccer player. He always coached me. And so that's when I had my dad. We spent every afternoon on the soccer field. And I wonder if I didn't play soccer, what would I have gotten out of my dad? Because he pretty much performance driven, worked a lot, but he was always there for soccer, to coach me and show up to games and tournaments and all that stuff. And there's a lot that I've taken away. One of the huge blessings is we moved early on. I was about 8 years old. We moved out of there, from Tampa to a tiny town called Avon Park, and it kind of removed him out of his circle of friends. And so he kind of had to create a new friend group, which was healthy. And then, shortly after that, got into church and everything. So I got to see the change and what church did in our life. It really changed the trajectory of our life big time. And it also changed his parenting, but one of the things I probably do different is I think that generation is just like, if I say something, that's it. Like, don't badger me. Don't ask again. If I say no, it's no, because I said so. Right. And that's probably, we read Love and Logic early on, whenever our kids were little. And so we kind of, we give them 2 choices, and kind of do that. And we are living in the fruit of that because they question everything. And so it's like, you want them to be independent and strong and not just go with the crowd. And
They are
we have raised 2 really odd ducks, headstrong, and they are their own people no matter what, which is awesome.
There's a difference between obedience and you want to water that curiosity of why.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. They're asking why, and it's a great teachable moment. And it's so funny that I squashed so many teachable moments going, because I said so.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And sometimes it feels disrespectful. Yeah. Maybe you're questioned and you're like, dadgummit, because I said so. Yeah. You better listen. But a lot of things done right. And it's interesting to think about, like, what are our kids going to do, different? What are they going to look at, like our style of parenting? Yeah. What are they going to choose with their own kiddos and be like, I don't want to do that, or they got that right, I'm going to do the same thing. But
How would you
And
answer
then
that?
one of the, oh yeah.
For yourself.
Oh, I don't know. Yeah. Well, I think the other thing my dad did, he was super physically affectionate, said "I love you" all the time, and showed it well. And so our family's very, very touchy, and we say "I love you" all the time. So that's good.
Yeah. I think I'm kind of a hybrid between you two, really. Like the thing about like the support during soccer, like my parents were just at everything. And like our family vacations were soccer tournaments. Like they were fully bought in to my development in that. But then also like I knew my dad loved me, but I never like I maybe have heard him say it twice in my life. Yeah. And I don't know that there's a day that goes by that I don't tell each one of my kids multiple times that I love them and how beautiful they are and how awesome they are. Like the words of affirmation thing was completely non-existent in my entire family, really, not just my father, but that is like one of my core desires is words of affirmations. And so my family, they get to receive that really quite often. And so I'm really thankful for that element. But then there's also a consistency to being there, that my dad was always there, and what I wanted to do was important to him. And that's really translated into how I feel and how I operate with my family as well.
Yeah.
So
It's interesting too with my dad. He went through some hard things as I was 11th, 12th grade, and kind of just things went off the rails. And so if you talked to my sister, who's 5 years younger than I am, and you talk to Taylor, my brother, who's 15 years younger than I am, even they got two different versions of him, and certainly a way different version than I did. Mm-hmm. And so I think conversely, like it's not too late to do things right and pursue our kids in the way it kind of happened reverse. My dad, he did a lot of damage in the years following, and luckily I kind of escaped it because I was I was an adult, so I was a young adult out of the house. But yeah, it's interesting how you can have siblings growing up in the same household and get very different versions of parents.
Yeah.
There's a part of that's encouraging, right? Mm-hmm. Because I think about now that having 2 out of the house and 4 left, I'm like, oh, there's some things I could do better. Yeah. And so it's encouraging that, it doesn't have to be the same pattern. For us having 6 kids, you're like, okay, I get another chance, right? There's another one, and they're just completely different kids to begin with. Yeah. But it's encouraging to kind of think about, this can be different. There are some things that were wounding in the past, or things that I maybe reflect on now, wished I would have done better. Yeah. But I've still got that opportunity now.
Yeah. The question that comes to mind I didn't prepare you guys for is like Matt talking about whenever we have that moment where our kids are questioning us, and I am so guilty of just wanting to say, because I said so, and then for me, if you guys feel something different, go ahead and share. But for me, it's been I don't want to exhaust the energy of the words explaining to them why, right? Because there's going to be 1,000 questions about your explanation as well. And so you just want to okay, I don't want to go there. So my question with that being, number 1, is that a similar experience for y'all? Number 2, how have you found breakthrough in your life of overcoming that feeling? Because I know it's not right when it's happening, but I feel like I don't have the energy. But the truth is you've got the energy.
So I grew up a Y kid, and to the degree that my family still jokes about it, it was Y for everything. And some of that's disobedience and rebellion, and some of it is that's how I'm wired. It's how the Lord made me. So I think I always told myself, if my kid is curious like that, why? I always felt like a burden. I felt that my curiosity and inquisitive like soul was tiresome to people. And so I wasn't going to make my kid feel that way. Whether my family did it intentionally or not, or they were just kind of hazing me, either way. So with my daughter, she is very inquisitive, very curious. She asks why all the time. And I have to remind myself constantly, no, this is what I want to water and foster, like you're saying. So we actually have thoughts and questions time at bedtime sometimes, where
That's
we just
when all the thoughts and questions come.
lay our head on our pillow and invite the thoughts and questions. I'm not going to sit here and lie and say I never go, just do what I ask you to do. But most of the time, even if she's asking, why do I have to put my shoes on? I want to take the time to explain to her, because sometimes she just needs a little bit more information to get on board, and I can give her that.
That's good. I think it really depends on situation too, right? Sometimes it needs to be just obedience now.
Yeah.
And sometimes you return it with another question. Can I answer that later? Can we discuss why you're asking why, at another time? Because we don't have a whole lot of time right now. Let's go ahead and do this. And sometimes you do have the time, but you get to ask different questions. I've learned, instead of telling, I'm asking questions, regardless of I don't know what the situation would be, but it's going back to them with another question. Why are you curious about why? Usually with parenting, especially young kids, even older kids, safety is number one, right? We're always thinking, be safe. And I want you home before midnight. Why? My dad's like, nothing good happens after midnight. Right. Yeah. So, which is pretty true. But then they go into, well, I don't understand why you, Mom, are more strict than my friends, that kind of stuff. And
Sure.
We all go there, right? And then we've got those choices to make, whether we are going to be the parents that we think God is calling us to be, or if we're going to submit to the other parents. Everybody's trying to be the cool parents, and we've done that. It didn't work.
I think in our house, that's the number one thing that we've learned over time, is leading with questions. Yeah. Like even when there's, and I'll tell you a silly story about it, but it just comes to mind immediately, is we're driving down the road. I'm probably going to church. I have no idea where we were going at that time, but I know exactly what stop sign we were pulling up to, when my daughter from the back seat, probably 4 years old, says, "Hey, Dad, what's the difference in boy dogs and girl dogs?" Well, what do you think? Or how do you tell the difference? I think was the question. How do you tell the difference in a boy dog and a girl dog? I'm like, well, what do you think? Kind of turn it back to her. She goes, well, I think boy dogs have the short pointy ears and the girl dogs have the long floppy ears. I'm like, good enough. That's good enough for today. Right. But just being willing to like find out, what's that curiosity? Where's that curiosity coming from? And what are we after? Right. Because sometimes I'll hear a question and I know the answer, and I start going over here in one direction. They're like, that's not, I didn't need all that. Yeah. I didn't need how. I just needed to know like one next step. And sometimes it's information overload. Years later, that same daughter, she's probably 13 or 14, she was asking me questions, and I started explaining. She goes, okay, time out. I don't need to know all that. Just tell me to go do it, this or this. Right. And so it can be a little bit overwhelming if we take that to that next degree of, I want you to know everything that goes through my brain about why I'm asking you to do something. Because I kind of grew up that way, where I didn't want, I wanted to know why. Yeah. And I didn't always get why.
Well, it becomes more important. The questions become more important after they're adults, because now you don't have the authority to tell them, you're right, you can't do this, you can't do that. Now it's, hey, let's talk about this situation and ask them what their thought process is and go walk them through that. And that's the only way to communicate with them, to get them to see maybe where they might fall short if they choose this path versus that path. It's a lot different conversation with an adult child than than a little child that's you're just trying to get to pick up their mess.
Yeah.
Well, I just put another tool in my tool belt, right? Like lead with questions, ask more questions. That's so good. Thank you.
Yeah. Then they're doing all the work, having to explain their question.
Oh, and it's fun to see them like go, they were trying to volley that to you, right?
Yeah.
And so, yeah, I think that's good. It's very, but you're spot on. As they get older, they need to know why. They need to be able to explain kind of what.
Why did you use ChatGPT to write that paper? Because it was stupid. It's a stupid class anyway.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, where'd that get you?
How'd that work? How'd that work?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh man.
Yeah.
That's good. Let's talk about like the stages of parenting, and I probably should have done this just coming to mind, but there's the research of kind of the different stages as far as like there's the cowboy and stage, and then or the parenting. It's you got the policeman stage, you've got the coaching stage. Do you remember what those are?
I don't remember all the names for them, but I know what you're talking about.
Yeah, explain in your experience in the transitions of stages. What are the ages you found that it's time for you as a parent to transition into a different style of relating to your kids?
I probably have a lot to say on this topic because we're constantly in the middle of it. I think it's a constant evaluation.
And it's different.
And I think about, absolutely. I don't think there's ages and stages. I think it's just this progression over time where it almost feels more like a leash, right? You have boundaries, and you're progressively just allowing them to have more boundaries. And I always wanted our kids to make mistakes, to be able to learn from their own mistakes. So that idea of like, well, listen to me and learn from my mistakes, and you won't have to make the same mistakes. I'm like, that didn't work for me. Yeah. I needed to go make my own mistakes. And so the idea of like giving them enough boundary or like, leash or something to be able to make those mistakes and learn while it's not as critical, like learn and have mistakes while you're still at home.
Yeah.
Right. Give them those boundaries. But it's a constant letting go of control and allowing them more responsibility, more autonomy, more of decision making, right? Because we can go from that, early on stage where they're just wholly dependent on us, to feed them, to clothe them, to, everything, right? Bath time, to everything else through that process, to suddenly you look back and like, okay, they're teenagers and now they need to make some mistakes. But how do you learn that? I don't think there's ever a moment where I'm like, okay, now I need to go from cop to coach. I don't think there was one moment I could reflect on at all.
And sometimes you kind of go back and forth depending on, it's just this line you're on.
Yeah. One of our kids, I remember sitting at the table one night and one of the girls said, "Hey, listen, Dad, I know you're giving me a lot of leash here, but I need you to rein it back in and tell me what to do, because this decision making is really hard right now. So tell me what I should do." It's just a bit overwhelming. So that's good feedback, right? From a child to be able to say, "Hey, I know you're trying to let me have all this runway, but right now I just need some help." And that's a good open communication process that
That's good.
love to have. We haven't always had that, but it's but that's just an ongoing thing, I believe.
I think that, and I got this advice from a counselor that I was seeing, and this is an older guy, much older guy, and just some wisdom that came out just like a light bulb. We all have consequences for every decision we make. So taking that into parenting, being able to talk to your young kids or older kids, like, okay, you want to do this. What is the consequence of your action? And so walking them through the consequences is a real great way, questions and talking to the kids about just seeing what's going to happen if you make this decision. And unfortunately, there's times where you're having that conversation after a decision's been made. And you're like, okay, what are the consequences of that? And honestly, even a punishment when they're younger, what do you think the punishment should be? What do you think the consequence should be of your actions?
Yep.
You know, let them tell you.
A lot of times it's worse than what I would have done.
Yeah, right.
Like they're just
6 months in jail. That's it.
jail.
So
Yeah, that's good.
Do you ever make them go pick their own stick?
No, I pick my own stuff.
that's their Gen X. That's
Meemaw's house.
Yeah.
I find myself oscillating between, coaching and counseling constantly. And even what's really kind of strange to navigate is with my son. He's just turned 15, but I feel like, he kind of runs in the same friend group that my daughter does. And so like a lot of his friends are older, and then he's ahead in school. And so it's kind of a weird dynamic, because sometimes he acts his age and then sometimes he acts very mature. And so I have to constantly assess, like, okay, what am I dealing with here? Am I dealing with the 14-year-old, am I dealing with the baby boy, or am I dealing with, the mature one? And so, but I'm constantly like going between coach and counselor, and still every now and then have
that doesn't stop at 20. That doesn't stop at 20.
Yeah. So it's I think it's a moving target.
Yeah, and then in that maturing process, you'll see glimpses of something. You're like, holy smokes, look at the maturity here.
Yeah.
And then you'll turn around like, where did that come from?
Mm-hmm.
Right. Everything's not maturing at the same level, or they're not just kind of moving gradually here. Some areas, like, they're going to take off.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And then you turn around like, okay, that was amazing.
Mm-hmm.
But why can't you pick up the phone and make your own call in order? Why can't you talk to that adult and do that little simple thing?
Yeah.
Like, so it's like there's a lot of grace, but there's like, okay, we gotta push you into some of these maturing areas too.
Yeah.
It's one of the most incredible things about Gabe. Oh my God. He's like 14, 13, calling the cell phone companies to figure out what plan they should get. And like,
Oh yeah.
he's just like, he'll call customer service. He don't mind. And I'm like, that's the last thing I want to do, even as an adult, is talk to those people. And he's just like, yeah, I'll talk to them.
It's funny.
And I'll get the best deal too.
He got it in his head that he needed to do Invisalign or something with his, and he's got straight teeth. I don't know. He feels like he has an overbite or underbite or something. So anyway, we were at the dentist, and he's talking to the dentist about like, you think I could get braces or Invisalign? And she's like, well, we could, I can make a referral, and we'll have to see if your insurance covers it. And he's like, oh, they do. I called them. And he called insurance to make sure that North and she's like, oh, you did. And it's like, yeah, that doesn't surprise me. Yeah, that's just how it is.
Yeah, I had that's conversely, I have a 24-year-old that asked me to do her taxes this year for the first time. I'm like, Google it.
ChatGPT that.
I mean, I'll help you. Just do a little effort first to go figure out what you don't know and come ask me. Yeah. It was pretty funny.
Yeah, that's funny.
Yeah, it's fun having my 18-year-old, or gosh, I keep saying 18. She's turning 18 here in a month. But she's so driven that like she's really all that stuff she just steps right into. I mean, she's figuring it out, and it's such a relief. It's so cool to see. Like, she wants it so she can buy more clothes, and all, she wants to. The drivenness is to get something, but man, it's cool to see, and it's cool to see her just take care of stuff. That's a fun part of parenting, is when you can see them like, oh my gosh, they're like actually adults doing these things, and so that's been fun. Obviously, a huge part of being a father is being intentional. We know that we're not just going to sit back and just become good fathers without being intentional. What has intentionality looked like for each one of you guys? Either for yourself or the way you can be intentional with your family.
That wasn't one of your questions.
I know, it's the Holy Spirit. Just drop that one in.
Yeah. I think my biggest struggle over the years, and I alluded to it earlier, is just being present, right? Because I get home from work and one of two things. Either I have my agenda on what I want to get done at the house, whether it's work related or things that need to get done around the house, or I'm just ready to disconnect. And so, and like you were saying, you're naturally wired, like, both my kiddos have 1,000 questions a day, which is beautiful. But sometimes I'm just like, I'm I'm talked out, like I'm done. I need no questions. And so you kind of, and I've already switched into fifth gear where I'm just, on autopilot. And I did that much of their young childhood. Like I look back and then too, part of the drivenness of just doing the next thing. Like I remember, Molly being born, and it was like, awesome. She's got 10 fingers, 10 toes. Okay, let's get her eating, and then let's get her home. And then it was always the next thing. It wasn't ever just enjoying like the present moment. And it robbed me of so much joy. And even looking back now at pictures, it's weird because I can tell you what I was accomplishing in my business, or what, like, I know by that picture and when that picture was taken, what I was spending my time doing. And more often than not, it's less about being at that theme park or whatever, where that picture was taken, but what I was doing otherwise. And so, man, the last few years have been a huge shift of just like trying to just put down my agenda and be present. And it's sad because I feel like I'm running out of time quick, because they're getting
It's just
older.
getting good,
So
Ryan. It's just getting good.
It is.
We have
yeah.
the best time right now as a family because, I got one living with me, one home from college, and then the 24-year-old graduated college, and she's hanging out at the house for right now. But it's great because on Sundays, the other daughter, the son-in-law, everybody comes over after church. We're together, and the conversations are different. They're funny, they're sad, they're all in between. It just depends on what's going on, but we're together, and it's been great. What you bring up a really good point though, Ryan. My intentionality, I was watching old the old mini cassette back when I had the camcorders, and I had all those.
You are old.
I am old. So I had all those, and we converted them to DVDs, and we like watching them and laughing because the kids were little and stuff. But I'm always on the camera. I'm really not in the picture, but you can hear my words. You can hear what I say, and it makes me cringe. Mm-hmm. So I'm very intentional about my words and my tone of voice. And I'm working more and more on that today, as if you were on the other end of a camera. Mm-hmm. If you want to listen to yourself back, that's a really bad, I don't like it. Mm-hmm. And in the same way, I would even listen to my dad in those videos, and I sound just like him. Mm-hmm. Like, hey, you need to stop that, or just, something. Yeah. And it was always like, man, I could have been more gentle and more tender with my kids at the time. Mm-hmm. But even now, so I'm very list driven. When the kids come home, when Reese comes home or Lawson comes home, I'm very intentional. I want them to see me smile at them. When they walk in the door, they don't need to hear, hey, did you do this yet? Or, or, hey, will you clean your bathroom, or will you do this? Or, there's something always, the first thing they see me that I don't want them to have that. So I'm trying to really be intentional about when they see me the first time, it's always greeted with a hug and a smile and a, how was your day? And those kind of things.
Mm-hmm. That's good.
So I would say intentionality and being present is my biggest hurdle right now with my kids. And it's the thing I'm most aware of. It's such a challenge for me, right? I talk to people all day. And so when I come home, and no matter how much that desire is in there, usually it's that duality of, I want to connect with my wife and my kids. I want to check out. You guys ever have things that like stick with you through just life? Like you see something, it's imprinted. Is that movie Courageous? Have you guys ever seen that? Mm-hmm. I watched that 15 years ago. I wasn't even married yet. Yeah. And, there's that scene where the guy loses his daughter, and he's just broken in this place of, why didn't I just dance with her when his little 8-year-old daughter wanted to dance? Mm. It has stuck with me long before I was married, long before I have kids. And now when my daughters are wanting me, 9 times out of 10, that scene's playing in my head. And if I choose to not be intentional, it's there. And I'm making a choice of like, no, I don't want to. But it's there. And it's just like this powerful reminder of how little time we have, how stuff can just happen in an instant, and how intentional I want to be. I'm not definitely not perfect at it. That scene is really, it's kind of like haunting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's something real about complacency and like the true battle it takes. Because like whenever we talk about like not being able to be present, like it's actually complacency, because I know the 5 of us at this table have the desire to be present. We know the value it brings. And I heard it was Jocko, was it Wilnick or whatever his last name is, was on a podcast, and he was talking about complacency and how you can't get complacent. And he said, even some people will be like, oh, like when the battle's real, like I wouldn't be complacent. And he's like, no, there are men in real warfare that like will be like standing up against the wall, and they're so tired from going up and down that they'll choose to just stay standing at the wall instead of taking a knee. So their head is exposed and they know that they should be taking a knee, but they're just so tired that they don't want to get down on the knee. And he's like talking about, that's how deceptive and real complacency is. Like none of us have as much control on it as what we think we do. And so the passivity and the us just not being present at home, like I just see those two things kind of melding together of like, no, we need to realize how strong of a hold complacency has on us, where we can just go home and I don't have it today, I'll have it tomorrow. You know, like I'll make up for it tomorrow. That's kind of one of my things, is I think I'll just make up for it later on. And I've earned some rest. I've earned some time to check out. And that's just not the
I don't
case.
think it's getting any easier. I think with John's latest book and the kind of the content that we're talking about, being everybody's busy, being discipled by the internet, our souls are not designed to carry that, right? Yeah. And so what are we doing during the day that is draining us so much to where we don't have what it takes when we walk in the door at home? That's the question, because God gave us everything we need to be able to be a good father and a good husband when we walk in the door. No excuses. What we're doing is there's stuff that we're filling our soul with that is taking up that space and that energy. And that's where I think that many of us, if not all of us, need to address. Yeah. As a society, as men and women, both. It is like, what's going on here? And so I think part of being a better father and being more present is addressing those areas of your life where you're filling it. I mean, if you're waking up in the morning, the first thing you're doing is scrolling through social media to see what you missed. That's step one. Right. Yeah. And that's not just all of it. Right. There's just so much stuff going on. Even John talks about it, even Googling how to do something, which is not inherently wrong. Right. But if you're spending all day, I need to buy this, I need to find this, I need to figure out how to fix this. And everything's right here, and just not letting life happen a little bit. Just, you'll put God first, and why don't you find refuge in him first, and then you'll have the strength to walk in that door for your family. Yeah.
I think the other thing that jumps out to me as you're talking about that is two things. One, priorities. One's consistency. Somebody gave me a definition of priorities once, which is your priorities are only the things that you can do. So your relationship with God, nobody else can do that for you. Yeah. Being a husband to your wife, ideally, nobody else should ever take that place, right? And being a father to your kids, those should be priorities. And now, if I mess something up at work, somebody's gonna, somebody else can do my job at work. But in theory, like nobody else should be coming into those priorities. So if I get that right, what are the things that only I can do or I should be doing? That's really helped me identify and just stay more consistent with priorities. But then that consistency piece for us. I've been really intentional about simplifying and being consistent in a few things, right? It's like church. It's not a question mark. Are we going to church today? That's never a question mark in our house. Never has been. And that's just something that we've always laid out there. We talk about in our house, we have 3 rules, and I like the simplicity of 3 rules. It's like, there's no lying. We're going to treat our family better than our best friends, and we're going to honor mom. Because if you get those 3 things, we're probably going to be pretty good as dad. But the rest of it, we'll figure it out, right? But there's not a need to go read the next book and figure out how to go do that thing better. Or, hey, I feel like we're deficient over here, so let's get another book or another resource. There's so much information, and we can chase the information and chase knowledge more than we're chasing life.
Yeah.
By just like trying to get everything perfect. For us, it's consistency. And that creates the safety that you talked about a little bit before. Kids desire safety. They need to know that they're safe. Yeah. And I think the consistency, it really breeds that safety in the home.
Yeah. Yeah. I found that the intentionality, it's a little bit different for every one of my kids of like what that looks like. And so what I'm intentional about is like knowing what they need individually. Like my oldest, she needs safety. She needs me to be centered and not to ride the roller coaster or come in harsh, like just gentle no matter what. And then Abby, 17-year-old, needs physical touch. Like whenever I'm walking by her, I need to give her a hug. Like even if we're just passing each other in the kitchen. And if she's around me and she like does this thing where she doesn't even tell me, but she's like literally just falling into me, like I better be there to catch her. And if she comes and lays on top of me on the couch, like I need to receive that. Like that's huge for her. And then Jameson needs a one-on-one time with me doing something active. And we do that nearly daily, whether it's football, soccer, fishing, all that stuff. And then Maisie, got to play Barbies with Maisie, or toys, and got to get down in the floor or play imagination with her and play family. And so they're all a little bit different. And I think my biggest area that I've worked on in the past couple of years is just having my yes be more available to them. So many times that they asked to do something that's like, I don't have it right now. And making sure that if I don't have it in that moment, I will in 5 minutes, and sometimes that is a thing. There is my kids understand what transition means when we get home, and they ask me to do something within the first 5 minutes, says, hey, can I have like 15 minutes of transition? And they, okay, can I go do this? Yeah, sure, go do it. And then I'm intentional to get up and go find them at the end of that 15 minutes and do the thing that they wanted to do. So
that's really big.
Yeah.
The idea that what each of them need, that's gold.
Yep.
Creating the space, creating the time specifically for each one of them individually. We do date nights, right? So every week there's a date night. Every other week's for mom, right? It's mom and dad. You guys fend for yourself that night. We're going to go do something. But that opposite Thursday typically is date night it's mom and dad or mom or dad, like one-on-one. Let's make sure that we're getting out of our normal routine and going to do something. And it could be something very simple, but it's like seeing them and carving out time, and they fight for it. Like when there's 4 or 5 kids in the home and they're all like, whose dates this week, right? They know, like they're all, I think I'm next. Right. And they've got a plan of what they want to go do. And
It's really fun to go shoot guns with your daughter.
yeah,
It's good times.
I've got one that likes to do that
That's great.
so far.
You do that with both your daughters?
No, just Reese. She wants to go shoot.
That's
We
awesome.
need to do that again. We haven't done that in a while, but
Yeah. Actually, I took Abby on the last date night that we did. We went to the gun range, and I thought that it closed at 9, but they start cleaning up at 8:30, and we got there at like 8:15. And so I was like, 45 minutes will be fine. I didn't even have enough ammo to last 45 minutes anyways. And they were like, we're only going to be open for like 10 more minutes. I was like, darn it.
yeah.
I wanted to take her to do that. She hadn't shot pistol in a long time. So, I'd love to kind of talk more spiritually now about being the spiritual leader of your home, specifically as a father. What are you guys? How are you guys winning in that area at home?
Man, number one, when I get up and I do my Bible time in the morning and prayer, a lot of times they're not awake. But if you haven't, oftentimes I'll do that in private, right? Just my time. But when they see you, that's pretty impactful, I think.
Yeah.
But also going back to kind of how I was raised, there wasn't a whole lot of one-on-one prayer time with mom and dad, we'd pray at dinner every night, those kind of things. Every time you eat, there's a prayer.
Right.
But there wasn't this intentional, hey, let's pray about it. And so that's where I've grown, and I'm still growing. I think Lawson and I, it's been about a month now, but just stuff going on. I said, hey, let's just pray together. And we sat there and I was praying over him, and as we're praying, he just reaches over and puts his hand on mine, and he starts praying over me. And those are the moments that you feel like, okay, God is doing something here, because all our kids have it. They've got it. They just have to have a confidence. They need to see you doing it. Yeah. So creating that relationship with God is what I'm working on, so that they see that, so they know they can do it.
That's good.
Yeah, I think of a story. Probably our older girls were 15 and 12, probably in that range. And in fact, Ryan and Meg, they were at our house for dinner. We'd wrapped up dinner, and he and I were getting ready to go to base camp the next day. And I remember as Meg and Ryan, my wife, Abby, and I, and our older two girls, which they just wanted to be a part of the adult conversation. They were just kind of at that stage where they just wanted to be there. And so we were talking about base camps, like, you know what? We should do listening prayer. We should have a listening prayer and see, because our staff, and I was on staff that time as one of the prayer directors, and we'd already been praying about this camp and had some things that they got to kind of foreshadowed for us. And like, let's just do that here together. And so this was the first introduction to the girls. I mean, they're 15 and 12. They'd never heard of listening prayer before, and let's give it a try, right? So I kind of explained what we're going to do, and we're praying, and I'm writing down notes, right? I'm taking like, man, this so much aligns with things that they've never seen, right? At base camp, they've never experienced, but they're getting things, right? And they're hearing. It's like, if you hear something, let me know. I'm going to write it down. I thought we were done, and my daughter's like, I see a guy. He's bald. He's got a red T-shirt on, and Ryan and I kind of stop and look at each other and like, are we still praying? What are you doing? What's going on? She goes, no, I've got a vision of somebody coming to camp, and he's super excited about the games. He's like, and she starts going very vivid description. She goes, he's bald by choice. It's like, okay, so shaved head, got a beard, okay, red T-shirt, like detail, right? And she goes, and his name, it's like a simple name with a J. And I go, okay, so like John? She goes, maybe that's it. Maybe his name's John. I'm like, okay, this is wild, right? This is coming from a 15-year-old first experience doing listening prayer. Mm-hmm. And so we kind of wrap it up. And I remember the next day going, we go to our men's group. We had a men's group the next morning, and then we were leaving for camp. And I tell Ryan, I'm like, man, I hope you guys need to pray that something happens that aligns with this. I don't know what it is, but something needs, like, this would be huge. Mm-hmm. We get there and we're doing check-in, and here comes a bald, bearded guy in a red T-shirt bebopping up there with donuts for everybody. And I'm like, what is this guy's name? I need to go and meet him. And I've told him I'm going to share this story, so I've got permission. Like, he comes up and I introduce myself to him. I go, I need to know who you are. And he goes, oh, I'm Adam. I'm like, nope. It's not John. I'm kind of making notes like Adam Jarvis. Simple name with a J, right? The interpretation was a little bit off, but you're like, holy smokes. She saw in a vision of him, and it was so powerful to him over the weekend because part of his story that weekend, he needed to be seen.
Wow.
And me sharing that with him later in the weekend, it was a radical change for him, radical moment. But I'm like, man, that was.
And all he cared about was the games.
And yes, and I asked him, I said, well, first thing I asked him was like, so have you been to base camp before? He goes, oh yeah, we play laser tag at night. Yeah. We go up on the hill. Yeah. This is back when we were in Anadarko. We go up on the hill and paintball, and everything was about the games. Like he was so excited to be there for the, just all that intentional time that we spend with guys playing, right?
Yes.
But it was so exciting, and that doesn't happen all the time. But like just that one moment, right? Like we can go back to that story. That's one of those things that's just written deeply on my heart, that was such a meaningful thing for her to know that she hears from God. She doesn't need me to hear for her. She can hear it for herself. Yeah. This last weekend, to kind of bring kind of full circle, now she's 21. She sends my wife and I a text and I've been praying about this thing, and I'm really concerned if I do this or not. And I feel like I'm supposed to do this. Will you guys pray for me? And so it's like, it got like full circle, right? This idea, like she believes very truly that God's going to answer this prayer for her and give her direction very specifically. And when I told her, like, I prayed about it and I said, what I heard specifically was there's no shame in moving forward with this. And she sent me, this cool message that she had written in her journal that said, I feel so much shame for this idea, right? Yeah. It's like just coming full circle to be able to trust in what each of us are hearing. Yeah. And at a young age, right, it's available to them.
Mm-hmm. Well, what I want you to hear in this too is that, the Stoners, their household isn't just floating around. I mean, Abby might be floating around off the floor, because she's so holy. Right. But like in reality, like you guys are just a real family. And so that moment you're talking about of the night before base camp, to choose, that's your intentionality, to choose to allow space for the Holy Spirit to come and speak, to do listening prayer. Like that's the type of intentionality we're talking about in this, that's not just because it's a normal thing in your household. Like you've created this environment. It's not just easy for you because you've been like the men listening to this. Yeah. It's available to you as well to do this.
But stepping out there to do that was almost like that first time stepping out to pray with my wife, right? It's like, oh no. Right. It's like, do I have what it takes? Or this feels awkward because it's new, right? It's different. We learn it through going to the Ascent, but I come home and I'm like, okay, how do I lead through this? And that first time is awkward. Yeah. Let's kind of embrace the awkward, like, okay, let's see how this goes. Yeah. And just be willing to give it a try.
So good.
I think if they learn that it's normal, they have a lot less barriers than we do as adults. And even like I think about Gabe, we had bought him a four-wheeler. He's probably 8. Bought him a four-wheeler. Within the first week, it loses, engine goes bad. So luckily we were able to swap that one out for another one. Then that one went bad. Then we switched brands, got that one. That one literally broke down again. And I'm like, buddy, I think maybe God might be protecting us from something here. Like, why don't we pray whether or not you're supposed to have a four-wheeler? And I because he's badgering me to get another one. And I'm like, I don't want to go, because we were buying the cheap, it was during COVID. Yeah. We were buying those cheap, Chinese four-wheelers and, just hoping one would work. I swear there were 20 in the neighborhood that worked fine, but we got 3 in a row that were not working. And so I'm like, there's something to this, and, as I'm telling the story, I didn't ask God ahead of time. I'm like, hey, should I get my son a four-wheeler? But after we had the trouble, it was like, you should probably ask God whether you're supposed to, because then he kind of moved on to a dirt bike. And anyway, it was a few days later, I was outside working on something, and he comes, he says, Dad, I talked to God about whether or not I'm supposed to have a four-wheeler. And I was like, oh yeah? What did he say? He said, nope, He said no. And the fact that he could hear the answer no,
willing to.
and he actually admitted it.
Yeah.
You know, he wasn't going to, try to find a workaround, was huge. And I have a lot of stories about listening prayer and kind of the culture of our family. It's just kind of what we've done. And it especially like with big things, right? We'll sit down and do a listening prayer intentionally. But whenever we were building our house, same thing. Like it was like everything from, is this place good? How much land do we buy? When do we buy it? We were asking all the questions. And the way God showed up during that prayer was incredible, because Molly and Gabe both were getting things. And then, long story short, everything that God revealed to them and to us just played out exactly the way that it did. So much so, like Gabe got visions and, even down to like 2.5 acres. And we had already talked to Chris about like landmarks, and we thought it was about 5 acres. Yeah. And so we're like, well, I think we'll get about 5 acres. And anyway, get the surveyor out there, and God very clearly, Meg was like, not 3, because that was one of the numbers, and we were discussing, and
you're making our podcast very weird right
Gabe
now.
Gabe got 2.5. Well, sorry, but this is just an example of the way God revealed himself, and he does, and they hear so clearly. Molly heard 2.5, and anyway, long story, but surveyor shows up. I'm like, just measure the landmarks. We're thinking now, because of what God had revealed, 2.5, but we're thinking this is about 5. Anyway, he measures it. It's exactly 2.5.
Yeah.
What we had done. And then
What does it do for your son?
And then 2. It's so faith building.
Yeah.
Like it's so affirming, and like, it's so normal too for them. Mm-hmm. Like they just know they can hear from God when they ask and create the space. So it should be, and it is a part of our lifestyle, but it should be for all of us as believers and walking with God. Like it's available, and I'm jealous sometimes, like, because they don't have as many barriers as we do. Yeah. I tend to overthink and analyze and second guess often, but like, man, when they hear, it's like, nope, God said this, and then
That's why he says faith like a child,
Yeah.
right? He wants us to be childlike.
Yeah.
Even as husbands and fathers, he's asking us just to have faith like a child.
Yeah.
Just come to him, prayer like a child, asking the same question over and over again. Please, Lord, please, Lord, please, Lord.
Yeah.
He loves that.
Yeah.
I think that's really cool. The other thing that comes to mind, and for all of this is, those of us who play golf, we always go back for that one great shot, right? It feels great. It's like, oh, I want to do that again, right? But it takes practice. It's the same with our prayer life, right? That one great shot is hearing from God. Is your daughter hearing that? And it's like, ooh, it's Gabe hearing that. It's like, I want to get back. I want to do that again.
Yeah.
And it's this repetition, and it's a practice.
Yeah.
And so I think it's really cool that the kids get involved in that. And that's the neatest part.
Yeah.
Watching that happen.
How do you guys, thinking about the childlike faith, how do you guys bring play into fathering?
Do you mind if I answer the last question? I had some stuff I was going to say.
Yeah, I guess that's okay.
Okay. So
Taylor will just splice my question after this.
Yeah.
And then we'll.
So is it, winning as fathers, leading spiritually? I wasn't joking when I said, fathering is an area I feel really inadequate at. Not because I'm totally flailing around, don't know what I'm doing. It's an area that I see so much need for growth. And that doesn't feel good as a man sometimes. So for, 10 years of our marriage, my wife was the spiritual leader of our home. Mm-hmm. So I would say I'm winning and leading our family spiritually because we've made just tremendous strides in our marriage and in our family towards just having, like you're saying, like making it normal, praying, inviting our girls into what we've been praying about. They know how long we've been praying for a baby. So to invite them into those faith building moments. So we've made strides. And I do believe that my journey from my first base camp to now is a big part of that, right? Like just leading in that way. But do my daughters see it as often as they should that I'm the one leading the charge? I think there's a lot of growth that I need. My wife knows where I'm at, and we pray a lot. We talk a lot. We're very different than we used to be, but because for so long she was the one initiating prayers over the girls at night and inviting them in to pray for little owies, and I've noticed it's challenging for me to then step in now, or if I should, right? So my girls are used to mommy being the prayer warrior and mommy being the one that is always talking to Jesus. And I think I do that a lot in the secret place, and I do it a lot with Hannah. But I have a long way to go for my girls to know that mommy's doing it because she loves Jesus, but she's also doing it because daddy's leading well, in a kind of a weird way, right? Mm-hmm. So I would say, yes, I'm winning. Yes, we've made tremendous strides, and fatherhood is an area that I still feel so much. I won't say shame. I don't feel shame about it, but there is a sense that I
desire for more.
Yes, desire to do better, do more, be more intentional, pursue their little hearts. I haven't even hit 3 years yet, James, from my first base camp. So I'm trying to have some grace for myself too.
Yeah, you probably need some grace. What do you sense what the gap might be? What some of the things that could get you to the point where you feel like you're making some ground?
I really like knowing what each of them need from me. I'm just like listening to you and how intentional you are with each one of them. They're different. Mm-hmm. Meeting them where they are, right? So I want to connect with them on this way, but my 2-year-old wants to do this thing, and I have to be willing to just roll with it. So I think intentionality and presence, I think it really is just being present. I mean, they're still young enough now where they don't really care what we're doing, just as long as daddy's there and he's in it. And he's participating in, if we're doing an Elsa play or whatever it is, like I'm in full character and participating. That's all they want.
Yeah.
And I think
you got pictures.
Oh, I see it.
I just want to hear the recording of him singing.
Yeah.
Let it go.
Let it go.
Man, I have my own version of that. It's great.
That's
wonderful because I can't even remember the words.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's good. Yeah. I think you're in a great stage where it's hard to know what your 2-year-old, 3-year-old, even, how do they know how they receive love, right? Like, it's almost like that whole, the 5 love languages, like she might not know yet.
Yeah.
And so, give yourself grace. Like you have time. And I think that this is a great time for you to realize, like, hey, I need to be listening for those things, because I promise you, like, all 3 of your kiddos will have different love languages for the most part, and they will receive love differently. And so study them.
Yeah.
Ooh.
Student of their heart.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
It's good.
That's good. What was my question before that?
Something about play.
Play.
I don't know
So
what your question was.
yeah. How, thinking of like the childlike faith, how do you guys bring play into your family? Are you good at it? Some of us, I'm guilty many times of not being good at bringing play. Like, it's execute, right?
Yeah. I think the question of, am I good at it, is the one that, like, ooh, that's a little piercing, right? Because I can think about some times that I love to get down and, like, so this year the boys did wrestling for the first time. They're 7 and 9. This first time I didn't wrestle, but I think it's awesome. I go watch their practices. I love to, and then they want to come home and practice on dad, right? So this is easy for me to get out there and, like, we're learning together. They're having fun. It's harder for me from a play standpoint with the girls as they're that teenage or kind of 10 up to 13 up into 14, when play for them is a lot more. It's not the tea parties anymore. I used to love doing the tea parties. I could sit down and do a tea party. I could make play there, but play for them or time for them, intentional time for them is a lot more in music. And if it's something that I don't enjoy as much, maybe like Taylor Swift, I'm probably going to disengage.
Why don't you like Taylor Swift?
It feels irresponsible. but that's part of also, like, it's a good question because it's part of my story, right? Embedded in my story is this desire or need to feel like everything needs to be responsible, or there is a need for me to be responsible for something, right? And if we're just playing, sometimes it just feels irresponsible. And especially if it's something that I don't enjoy playing, right? And so there is a difference there, and I get it, but sometimes it's easier to engage and play when it's something I enjoy. If it's not something that's there for me, maybe it feels like, I don't say wasted time, but maybe a little irresponsible. And as dad, trying to keep everything together, right? Owning too much, that can, unfortunately, I will disengage, and I'll choose to disengage.
So are we talking about playing individually with our child one-on-one or as a whole?
Yeah, I'd say as one-on-one or family-oriented.
Okay. I mean, it's not easy. I mean, I've got my oldest daughter is a lot like me. She's my mini-me. She's words of affirmation, physical touch, and she loves to be hugged. And then the young one, who's the son, he's a boy, so we have a lot in common. He started listening to all the music I like. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, 90s grunge is on a lot, and it's great. So we started playing golf together, and we do a lot together. And of course he plays soccer in college, so we're always there at those games, and we enjoy that. So because those games are in the fall, we don't do any hunting together and that kind of stuff. We're looking forward to those days. The middle ones have been a challenge. So Reese is, I used to always call her my princess. And but she's the one I started shooting guns. She likes to shoot guns. So that's great. So there's differences in all of them, what we can do. But we did we bought a boat. We don't go on summer vacations. That's our summer vacation. And so we love to play together on the boat. And now that we have a granddaughter, she loves being on the boat, and we're just waiting for now to put her in the water.
Yeah.
And that'll be interesting to see if we can get her up this year.
Oh, nice.
We can get all the rain out of the way.
Yeah.
So.
Very good.
I mean, I got 2 young girls and, a third young one on the way. It's not hard to play. I just have to do it. They'll tell me what we're playing.
Yeah.
I just have to do it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's good. Yeah, for me, it's football with Jameson. Luckily, some of our best friends live next door, and so their 2 boys come over, and I'm the quarterback for the football game, and that's so much fun. Like that's all I did growing up, and it's been interesting stepping back into that as an adult and feeling my heart come alive. Like I get a little bit competitive, like. Not like angry but I'm like, it's like just find myself like hoping he catches the ball like after I throw it, and it's so much fun.
Hey, I did buy Incubus tickets for Lawson and I.
I was about to ask you.
We're going to
Incubus and Green Day. The things that came to mind, we said golfing and grunge.
We did Smashing Pumpkins about 3 years ago, and now we're going to Incubus.
Great.
So.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Okay, I want to end this podcast with a couple of shorter form answer questions. What would you say to a dad who feels like he's not doing enough?
So I would say for a long time I wasn't. And the truth is some of us aren't. But as we begin to allow the Father to father us, we start to truly change. And he gives us what we need to be good fathers. So if you feel like you're not doing enough, you feel like you're missing the mark. I was there, and in some ways I still am, but I have so much hope and what I've seen from you guys and what I've seen in True North, that as I let the Father father me, like that change comes, and we can start to impart that to our kids.
Yeah, I think John talks about it, but something that's always stuck with me, no matter how intentional or how much I try not to wound my kiddos, it's going to happen. And the conspiracy is that if we could actually successfully father our kids without wounding them, then there would be no need for Jesus. And so I just take heart and know that like we were talking about earlier, like God will come in and father our own children in the places where we screwed up. Like we're going to screw up, but to give ourselves some grace and just keep moving forward and keep pursuing them is really what I would encourage guys. Like, we're not going to get it right. We're not going to get it right all the time, but that's okay. That's okay. There's no way to do that.
Yeah. I think I piggyback off that because, you know, that saying, your presence is enough. I've had many experiences, especially with my older daughters, where it's like BS.
Yeah.
I'm present and it's not enough right now. And I think for the moment that there is some fault to that saying, but I think overall what I've gotten to experience now is, in the long run, because I was present in those moments, I've been enough because of Jesus in me, of course. Like, not me, but like, that's all it's like. Your presence is enough, and it's not going to feel like it in the moment, but it will come to fruition in the long run, that you are enough. Your presence is enough. You and your heart and yourself is enough. It's like what John says at the end of base camp, as he is giving us our parting words and wisdom to take with us, is your children will always want your love. Mm-hmm. And if you're present with them, that's an incredible way to show your love. And so for me, your presence is enough.
I think, and you guys already kind of hit on it, but we're not going to get it right. We are not the perfect father, and just knowing that but not holding on to the guilt or the shame of our mistakes, taking a breath and knowing that, you know what, I probably could have done better at that moment, that whatever. But what I found really helpful, what I would tell men is in the spirit of your honesty, tell the truth in your household, just go to that kid, ask for forgiveness.
Yeah, that's good.
You know, every single time, even every day, if you say, man, I could have handled that better, forgive me, you know, and most of the time, if not all the time, they love that. That's just going to create a stronger bond between you two when they know that their dad's not perfect, but he loves you and he's trying. And so that's what I found is, man, just being able to apologize, to ask for forgiveness in the areas that I failed, even in stuff that I failed years ago. If I think about it, I'm like, oh, we probably ought to go talk about that. Mm-hmm. So that's what I would say, because you're not going to get it right. But what you can get right is asking for forgiveness.
Yep. That's big. I think the other thing that jumps out to me is community. We talk about it all the time, but you can look around you, whether it's in True North or whether it's in your local church or whether it's just somebody else you know that's maybe one step ahead of you, and buy that guy a cup of coffee. Right? Go have a conversation and ask the conversation. Start the conversation. Be willing to be honest about where you're at and ask for some advice. I've been really blessed to be a part of men's groups for 15 years. And what I've learned from just sitting in a circle and just listening to guys tell stories about what's going on, how much you can glean from that, and how that creates motivation, one, to do better. Not better than the guy next to me, but just like it makes you want to do better.
Yeah.
But it'll create that desire to be intentional. And I think a lot of times it just comes back to, are we intentional at home? Yeah. And maybe we're not doing enough right now, but it's a shift in mindset to be intentional.
Yes.
And do some of the things you guys are talking about.
Good. Best advice for dads.
Do what I say. Period. Just kidding. Don't ask why.
Yeah.
I would say in all things, the longings that you have to be something you're not, find the men who have what you want. So if we're talking about fatherhood and there are areas you want to grow in that, ask the Lord to show you who the men are that you need to surround yourself with. I like what you said. Find some just like you guys that are steps ahead of me and glean and learn and ask. Find the men.
That's good. I'll double down on the apology thing. I think it's so important. Like if we're being honest and open, authentic, transparent, just like, we're asking men to do, and within the True North culture, we have to do that at home too. And so, I tell my daughter all the time, I'm like, I don't know, I've never raised a 17-year-old girl. Like I've never been a 17-year-old girl. Like I'm figuring this out with you. Like this is, I don't always get it right. Sometimes I'm a little too harsh or whatever, but to apologize and admit like, hey, I didn't get that right. Just like what you're talking about. That goes so far in their trust in what I say and not just their trust, but the fact that they know that I want the best for them. Yeah. It's they feel safe, right? Because they know when I don't get it right. Yeah. So when you point it out, you're like, I didn't get that right. Then it's like, okay, we're on the same page. It's not this, tension there, but
there's a paradigm there because the Lord's given the father the authority in the house already. Right. And a lot of times as men, we're we're not going to apologize. This is our house, that kind of a mentality. And so that's where it's more powerful. The asking for forgiveness is so much more powerful because you already have the authority. Yeah. And it shows your kids like they're not going to look any less on, they're going to look more favorably on you for coming to them with the request of forgiveness.
I think there's two things that jump out to me as far as broad advice, right? One is it's not about you. Well, nod to Scott Salese. He used to tell me this all the time. Hey, remember, it's not about you. It is about us pointing our kids to Jesus, right? How well are we doing in pointing them there over time? Because you are in that mode early on of, being the provider for them, right? In so many different ways. But there is this time where you've got to allow them to disconnect from your faith and create their own faith. Yeah. And there's that, now you're trying to push them, or not even push them, but just encourage them to go to God. Yeah. So that's one thing. The other thing that's jumped out to me in this last season for us is I'm a steward, not an owner. And stewardship applies in parenting. These are not our kids. These are God's kids. And we are appointed for this specific time period to be in their lives, to raise them, to show them, to love on them, and to point them to God. These are His kids, not ours. We're stewards, not owners. That's a big part of releasing right now for us.
Yeah, I think it's good. I think I've got two as well. Like when I think of advice, what I would advise for if you've got younger kids, like my two younger kids, one of the things I do is I take time daily to sit in adoration of them, to just enjoy the beauty of like, these are my kids that like God created within our family, and like they have my DNA in them and they're beautiful. Like I sit in it, and I'm intentional about doing that. It's not just, every once in a while, like it's every day. Like when I start feeling it, I stop and I sit in it. And so I love that. I think that's crucial. Like my love for them just grows and grows with that. And then for my older girls, my biggest advice, and I've given this advice a lot, is always keep the lines of communication open at all costs. At all costs, keep the line. Never do something that will compromise that because they disrespected you, or they went against your rules, or they're not making sense, or they're doing something crazy. Like, yes, we step in. Yes, we have authority. Yes, we set boundaries. but always at keeping the lines of communication open. We've learned that as far out as they'll travel away from you, they'll always come back if you keep those lines of communication open. And so we've got to witness it firsthand, and it's been a beautiful thing to watch unfold.
I think really depends on age, of course. With the younger kids, like what you guys are doing, pointing them to Jesus early is prayerful. It's the conversations. It's those things that are not really hard to do. But for whatever reason, as a young father, I didn't do a lot of that. I mean, we went to church, but it was this intentionality at home to pray with them and stuff. But with the older kids, it is listen more, speak less.
Yeah.
It's that hearing them. It goes back to the line of communication, but your words have power. And how much scripture is written about the tongue and what it can do. And I know that firsthand in my house, where I've spoken some things that I had to go ask for forgiveness for. But listen before you speak, and because they're really want to get stuff off their heart and they're looking for advice, they're looking for growth, they're looking for direction, whatever it is, just listening. And even if they're just sad, obviously boys and girls are different, but and the girls want to be heard. And then you find out that your son is sensitive too, right? They've got a point in there where it's like they just want to be admired by their father and loved. So just listen.
That's good. I think my last piece of advice, I'm thinking of, we've kind of touched on this, all of us at some point, of what it feels like to pray with your family, like to pray with your wife, how like our families are actually some of the hardest people to pray in front of. And our kids, because they see some of the uglier sides of us, right? And so we're invalidated and we feel like a fake, phony, a fraud going before them saying, let's pray about this, whenever we're living in seasons of disconnection. But the encouragement is like, it has to start somewhere, right? Have the courage to step in. And even if it feels like, I know I don't have the equity to say, let's pray over this or do that, like, you got to start somewhere.
Yeah.
And I think all of us have experienced those moments. And then for me, it's been kind of season to season. Like, I'll have really strong seasons where it's just so natural. But then you kind of get complacent, fall off. And then like 6 weeks later, you're like, oh, like I feel weird even asking to pray about this because I don't even feel like I'm a good representative of it. Yeah. But then I've had the courage to step in, bite the bullet that first couple times and just do it. And then you get back into a rhythm. It's just go with the flow.
Yeah.
Step
so
in.
Interesting as you're talking about that. Like you and I have talked about this several times, progress over perfection.
Yeah.
Right. How many things can we take from our work life that we try to implement and try to get things moving that we can take home? Mm-hmm. Right. That idea of just like, it's going to feel awkward. That's okay.
Yes.
Go ahead and step in, take the risk, be willing to take the first step, be willing to speak up, be willing to, gather them around and start praying with them. Yep. Right. It doesn't have to be perfect. They're not looking for perfection either.
No.
They want you to lead.
Yep. And your older kids might make fun of you, but that's okay.
They
will make fun of you.
If they don't pick on that, they will find something else, right?
Yeah, so, 100%. Okay. Well, Heath, we hope we've fixed all of your problems through this podcast.
Not even close.
Oh, okay. Good. But I think if do you guys have any last thoughts or words that come into mind? We can end it here.
I think so.
Okay. Guys, you're equipped, you're called, you are the spiritual leader of your family. If you feel like you don't know what to do next, get plugged in with your North. Like, come to the frontier, get plugged into a men's group, come to camps. You will bump into guys that will help you in this process. I promise you. And so just have the courage to step in. But we thank you for listening to this podcast. It's been a great one. Thank you guys for joining us. Thank you guys for being the men that you are, so that it spurned in my mind, I should invite these guys in on a Father's Day podcast. So thank you guys for living lives of integrity and love and authenticity that makes it easy for me to be like, yeah, that would be great to have those guys on. So thank you for that.
Thank you. Appreciate the invite.
Yeah.
Finally.
Fine.
Keep that one.